First, let's have a look at some of the tools and techniques you're going to need when you start fly dressing. First of all, vices, of which there are many. The first one here is the bottom end of the market, and the later one is a much more expensive version. Both are excellent, but there are so many different variations these days. It's well worth going to a good fly shop or fly tying show to go through the range before you buy. Dubbing needles, they come in all shapes and sizes. This particular one has got a half hitch tool on the other end, which comes in handy for all sorts of little jobs, which we'll see later. Even this old one, my granny's hat pin. Scissors, lots of shapes and sizes. My own favourites, they're offset, and I always polish the tips of my scissors so that I get clean, fine cutting edges. Razor scissors, deer hair scissors, good heavy duty stuff. And these are an old-fashioned pair, still sharp even after 50 years. Rotary Whip Finish tool. Toe and heel will become obvious later when I refer to them. Bobbin holders. A standard sprung leg ceramic tube, this one. Again with a ceramic tube, this particular one has got a brake system built in. Hackle pliers, like so many other tools, a great many variations. Rotating ones and standard sprung steel ones where you squeeze to open them. Tying threads. This is a multi-strand or flat thread, of which there are quite a few out there. It's become the more popular style of thread. Slightly more old-fashioned type of thread, a round thread based on the old silk threads we used when I first started 60 years ago. Now cock hackles, they come in all shapes and sizes. This is a common or garden gamecock that I killed and did myself. This is a standard Chinese dyed on white cape. You tend to get large hackles on these for big flies. The old favourite Indian gamecock, fairly standard, sizes down to about a size 14, not much smaller. Now we're talking about the modern genetic, phenomenal length of feather and shortness in fibre combination. And this just gives you a comparison between the Indian, the Chinese, and two different types of genetic cape. These two genetic hackles are 20 years difference in the making. The old one on the right and the modern one on the left. Tremendously long, usable feather. And the saddle hackle here, the hackle pliers in my hand, are there to give you some idea of the length of hackle that you get. Now with the soft hackles, the hen hackles, always prepared from the tip. Don't tie them by the butt, tie them by the tip because they've usually got thick stems. Also feathers like the partridge and grouse and similar soft hackle feathers that you use. This one's a French partridge which crops up in the old traditional Irish wet mayflies. Now for some basic techniques. The whip start. Starting at the eye, take turns towards the bend. There are only 2 full turns on there, and yet that butt end is already tied in safely. By holding that butt end out at an angle, fairly steep angle, you help to keep the turns tight and touching. Even if you go off like I'm exaggerating here, that tight thread pushes the threads in one behind the other. And as you learn to tie flies, so build up a little bit of speed. You'll find it works well. probably the hardest thing, is making that simple movement. Now, when you cut things off, use the tips, not that part of the scissors, there, the tips down in there, and cut really tight like that. Now, careless turns, beginners do this quite a lot. Now, try and make smooth turns as you go back up the body. If you lose the angle of the turn and start to make open turns, it's no good trying to improve the job by going back over them. It just makes a lumpy base for the body. So undo them, and now go back and make smooth touching turns. Very important part in fly dressing. Gives you a good base for everything. Now the hand whip finish. Simple once you know how. 2 fingers on top. Form the loop by pushing the thread back to the hook, bobbin holder in hand. And now rotate your fingers there inside that loop and pull down, and you'll see a figure 4 there, or some people call it the triangle, has been set. Now you push that over, and you'll see a vertical and horizontal there. That's I refer to as we go along. As you make the first turn, be careful. Don't pull it away from the hook. Make sure the thread loop stays tight against the hook. So push it back. Make sure that it's right up against the hook shank. You don't want a loose loop there. And you push the vertical over, and the horizontal always stays on your side of the hook. As you pull down with the second finger, it's always your side of the hook. The only one that goes over is the vertical one. Transfer onto a finger for a second or two, pick up the needle, collect the hook, slide tight by pulling. Notice how I pulled out of the tail of the hook. Now a whip finish tool. Just lay it on top of the loop, push towards the hook and rotate 90 degrees as you do, and you see the figure 4 there formed, and the vertical tying in the horizontal in exactly the same way as the hand whip. Push forward, off the heel, and then off the toe. And we'll do it again. We'll do it at normal speed. There we go. Once you've learnt the simple technique, it's very easy. Using the half hitch tool I mentioned on the end of that dubbing needle. I've got one on my rotating hackle pliers, and there it is. Just one turn, slip it on. Another one to show you how to do it, and just slip it over and slide it down. There we go. When you get good at it, you can put a couple of turns on, and just exactly the same way, slide and tighten. Here we go, and slide and tighten. Pinch and loop, or soft loop as some people call it. Just a bunch of pheasant tail fibres here. Up, pull back in between the fingers and pinch. Down the other side and pinch. Come up, don't let go. Pinch, pull. Pinch and pull. And now you'll see it at normal tying speed. There we go. Very simple. Again, just take practice. Now, looking at it from the front, you'll see how the fingers and thumb move. Okay, as we come up with the second turn, thumb opens, closes. Finger opens, closes. Pull. Open, close. Pull. And when you're tying in tails and want them to stay in place, if we use those fibres there, holding them under tension above the hook slightly and binding down on them, keeps them on top of the hook. And now this is the wrong way. If you don't hold and support them and just start making turns, they will start to get pushed round. Here we go. There and there and there. You've lost that tail completely. It's off the side of the hook. There we go. Now, using flat thread, first of all, splitting the thread, a technique you'll come across from time to time in the patterns that we'll be tying later on. First, just stroke through as you see, flatten the thread against the finger, and then set the needle into the thread and split it roughly in half. Carefully separate them with the fingers and keep your finger in the loop. When you've got a thread that's gone flat and you want it to be round, all you do is spin the bobbin. This is actually done at slow motion because the camera couldn't cope with the speed of the spinning, so I had to slow it down so that you could see. That is creating a round thread, which is stronger of course than a set of flat threads. So for certain jobs you want it flat, for some jobs you want it round, and then you carry on tying in the normal way. And if you leave the bobbin to hang when you've got a flat type thread, it will automatically flatten, unwind and flatten like that. So if you've left the thread hanging for any length of time, always spin the bobbin before you start work, unless you want a very flat thread for some reason. You need to have your bobbin holder neither too loose nor too tight. As long as it supports that sort of movement without unravelling, that's fine. And you need to be able to whip the thread off very quickly without breaking it. Then it's set properly without being too tight. There, I didn't break the thread. Now, to tune them, if it's too loose, just squeeze the legs across like that so that they cross. That'll tighten them up. And if it's too tight, to soften it up a little bit, put your thumbs up on the elbow there and then spring with your fingers so that you slightly open them up. Now, with your right style bobbin holder like this one, it's got a little key on the end which clicks round one click at a time until you slacken it off and then undo it, and that takes the end off so that you can change spools. Most of the ones with brakes work the same way. Then you just tighten it back up one click at a time until you set the tension that you want. Now go get used to your tools and techniques, and we'll see you next time.